Welcome to the Women in Publishing Summit, where we are celebrating the accomplishments of women involved in the writing, the editing, the publishing, the marketing, the graphic design, the podcasting, the all things related to writing and selling good books or putting our words out into the world. I'm really excited to have a return guest from last year, Joan Dempsey, who at the time of recording last time was almost published. Like it was almost out there. By the time it was live, she had published her first book, which has been a huge success. It's This Is How It Begins, which won the Bronze 2018 Independent Publisher Book Award for Literary Fiction. And Joan is going to actually provide a recorded session to talk to you guys about, I think, a really cool topic. And we're going to get into that in just a second here. But I want to give you the full read up on who Joan is and why she's here. So she is also the winner of the 2017 Maureen Egan Writers Exchange Award from Poets and Writers. She's been named by Poets and Writers magazine as one of 5 more over 50 writers to watch, which is awesome. I love it that they're also celebrating older writers. Not that 50's old. I mean, you know what I mean.
I hope not.
Okay, so This Is How It Begins won the Bronze 2018 award, as I just mentioned, but it's also a 2018 Lambda Literary Award finalist for gay fiction. It's also the Forward Indies Book of the Year Award finalist for historical fiction, and the 2018 Sarton Women's Book Award finalist for contemporary fiction. So it's got some awards out there behind it. And I'm going to include the link. We actually interviewed her on my podcast to talk all about the book. We loved the book. It was so great. And a really cool, look back. It's contemporary, but it also has a piece in World War II fiction, and tackles some really important topics. So yeah, it's just really cool. Let me finish on here and then we'll get back to she is a legit writer. She has her MFA degree, which is her Master's of Fiction, right?
That's right.
Yes. Okay. And teaching certificate in creative writing from Antioch University in Los Angeles. So her story is pretty cool because she actually got an Elizabeth George Foundation grant to go do research for her book, which allowed her to go to Warsaw for a month and to Washington, D.C. So another way you might want to reach out to Joan is if you're interested in finding out how to get funding to do that kind of writing and research for your book. And so the list goes on. We will include her whole bio in here, but lots of good stuff happening. And first, I just want to say congratulations on the massive success that you've had with this book.
Thank you so much. And it's really nice to be back again this year. It's been quite a year, and it's fun to come full circle from publishing to now having the book been out in the world for a year. It's great.
Well, before we get into your topic, I just kind of would love to hear, because like I said, when I interviewed you last time, the book was just about to publish. I believe that's right? When was the actual publication date?
I believe so. Yeah. October 3rd of 2017 was the actual date. So.
Right. And I think we had interviewed you in August or something. So we were September. So we were really close. So how has life changed from going from working on your book to published author?
Oh boy, in so many ways. Honestly, it's really a dream come true, I have to say. It's been a long time coming. It took 7+ years to write the book and then another couple of years for it to come out. And there are just so many delightful things about having a book in the world. And one of the most surprising things, which this might surprise people to hear this, but I honestly never thought while I was writing the book about reader responses. I mean, I always wanted people to read it, of course, but I never thought about hearing from readers. And that has just been amazing. I hear from readers all the time. I get these incredible emails from people telling me, all kinds of connections they made with the book and how much the book meant to them. I get people writing to me saying, "Curse you, I was up all night because I couldn't stop reading." And so that really makes me feel great. I've also been out in the world, of course, with the book, meeting with book groups and libraries and bookstores, So it's really been the life of an author instead of the life of a writer who's not yet an author. And that has just made a huge difference in so many ways. That's just scratching the surface. It's been fantastic.
Well, I think that's really cool because for anybody who's writing a book, whether it's a fiction or creative nonfiction or a nonfiction across the board, like this is the cool part when you really get to see the impact of what your words have done. And our theme this year is changing the world with your words. And what Joan's actual presentation is going to be on is how contemporary hot button issues can not only entertain and challenge readers, but can really get them to step outside of their comfort zones and change mindset. And so it's more than about selling books. It's kind of about the impact of what these books have on people too. I think it's really important for you to give just a quick synopsis of your book because we've skirted it but haven't talked about it.
Sure, and I'll do it in the context of what I'll be talking about in the pre-recorded session, and that is that I deliberately, both for personal reasons and also book selling reasons, chose a topic that I felt was a hot button topic in the contemporary world, and I chose it primarily because I was interested in it. I mean, if you're writing a book, you're going to spend an awful lot of time with your topic and your characters, so you better like what you're researching and what you're learning about. So, that's the first thing. It was me. I was interested and wanted to explore it. And then it also not only was becoming a hot topic as I was writing it, but over time it seemed like I was sort of prescient, like I knew what was going to happen, which was not true, but it worked out that way. And so the basic contemporary issue that's at the heart of the book is looking at the conflict between civil rights and religious freedom. Mm-hmm. And the two sides of that issue are things that I looked at with a real open mind as I was writing. I did not want this to be a one side or the other book. I wanted to really create characters who believe very strongly in religious freedom and civil rights and look at how those things conflict and what we do about that. What I have heard from readers is that they picked the book up because of the topic. I'm specifically looking at gay rights versus religious freedom. And so they picked it up because of the topic and ended up leaving the reading of the book feeling differently about things, at least having a better sense of what the opposing side, if you will, is all about. And I heard that from people on both sides of the issue. So I felt like I did my job well at putting forward a balanced look at these issues.
Well, you couldn't have picked a better time to launch a book on this topic. I mean, really, speaking
That's right.
Psychic, it's like you just knew that this would be like the hot button topic of the
That's
day.
Right.
But I think it's really cool. And for me, I'm still working on my very first fiction book that I've been working on for a long time now and not making much forward progress with because of life. But for me, like I really, really enjoyed seeing how you were able to craft such a well-written and intriguing fiction book. I mean, it is fiction, and there's a lot of it reads really easily, but having the ability to have that impact on people and the way that they think about a topic. And for me, that is my super ultra goal with my book as well, which is highly feminist oriented. I mean, it's about female spies in France in World War II. So like the role of women, in particular, like women heroes that got such a small piece of history when you look back and really see how they were heralded after all of this, so that's my goal too, is to really be able to take issues that were that right now have become super hot button again. Who would have guessed in 2018 we'd still be discussing some of these issues? And I imagine we still will be in 2025 when I finish this book. Or sooner. But so I think this is great. I really look forward to watching your presentation. And if you would, I'd love if you just kind of give an overview of what to expect.
Sure. What I really want to look at is, well, I guess by the time people have finished with the session, um, they'll have had a chance to explore how many best-selling novels center around contemporary hot issues and what that means. Considered how it is that fiction changes the hearts and minds of people, how important it is in our culture, and also determined how they can capitalize on the button issues to sell books.
Yeah.
How do you use this to your advantage as an author to help you sell books? So those really are the three areas that I'll be looking at.
Well, that's awesome, because you're basically getting to say, if this is a topic of interest to you, I'm going to teach you how you can use it to write a really cool book and give you some tools on how to sell it too. So very important elements. Well, that is a fantastic topic. I can't wait to see the finished product, and where I'm sure you're going to address all of this, but just to make sure that we cover it, where can people find you and where can they get your book? And I would also, I don't know if you were planning on doing this in your session or not, but I know that you teach some online writing courses and things like that. Hopefully you will continue to have those available. Where can they get all the goods?
Sure. All the goods. Best place to start is simply joandempsey.com. And specifically about the novel, go to thisishowitbeginsnovel.com. So joandempsey.com and thisishowitbeginsnovel.com. I will be teaching online classes in 2019, and joandempsey.com is the place to go to find out about those.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I am so glad again to have you back this time, and can't wait to dig in with everybody else and watch this presentation.
Sounds great. Thank you, Alexa. It's good to be back. Hey there. Thanks for joining me. As Alexa and I were just saying, what we're going to do in this section is take a look at how contemporary hot button issues can not only entertain and challenge your readers, but can also help you sell books. What we'll do in the next little bit is take a look at some mega bestsellers and how they used hot button topics in order to factor into those sales. Take a look at some of the ways in which you can use hot button topics to sell your books. I'll leave you with a few tips in good women in publishing tradition, and that's it. Just so you know, I do have some notes here on the screen, so I will be referring to those back and forth as we go along. Why this topic? As Alexa and I were just talking about, I deliberately chose a contemporary hot button topic that I'm interested in, looking at gay rights versus religious freedom, and really what I'm exploring is that the bigotry on both sides of those issues. And I chose it not just because I'm interested in it, but because I think hot button topics make for fascinating fiction. I also really wanted to sell my novel, so it's important to know that people turn to not only to nonfiction to learn about hot button issues, but also to memoir and to fiction. Readers really want not only to be entertained, they also want to be challenged. They want to learn, they want to explore, they want to spend time inside the hearts and minds and bodies of people who are completely different than they are. It is really a great way to explore anything you want to explore in the world. And as a writer, it's great fun. I love nothing more than getting inside the hearts and minds and bodies of characters who are completely unlike myself. The other reason I chose this topic is because a number of years ago I read a terrific book by James W. Hall called Hit Lit, Cracking the Code of the 20th Century's Bestsellers. Hit Lit. You'll find a link to this book in the notes below, and also to my novel, which I should give that a little plug. This is How It Begins. Take a look at that if you would too. Anyway, so another reason for choosing the topic is because a number of years ago I read Hit Lit, and I was fascinated by how James W. Hall dissects some of the best-selling novels of all time and identifies the things that they have in common. One of the things that all these mega bestsellers have in common is that they center around what Hall calls hot buttons. I'm going to read you a brief passage from the chapter in which he talks about this. Hall starts this section with a quote from William Hazlitt. When a thing ceases to be a subject of controversy, it ceases to be a subject of interest. One surefire way to rile up folks is to raise the controversy du jour. Whether it was a conscious strategy or not, the authors on our list, that's in the book Hit Lit, raised one or more highly contentious topics of their day. If ripping a story from the headlines were all there was to it, anyone could sit down with the Washington Post and construct a novel that sold 1 million copies. The formula would be simple. Select an issue that makes the blood boil in many normally level-headed Americans. Old reliables like abortion, gay marriage, church and state, global warming, school prayer, gun control, race relations, immigration policy, or capital punishment are always handy. Then gather up the loaded language of that subject matter, create a simple story, and you're ready to roll. But there's a crucial second half to this hot-button topic equation that deepens and broadens the subject matter, an approach that all our bestsellers employ to one degree or another. For a hot-button issue to have real wallop, it also must express some larger, deep-seated, and unresolved conflict in the national consciousness. That last sentence is worth repeating and thinking about. For a hot-button issue to have real wallop, it also must express some larger, deep-seated, and unresolved conflict in the national consciousness. Hall uses the Civil War as an example, and the mega bestseller, which, as you may guess, Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell, which, as of the publication of Hall's book in 2012, had sold 8.63 million copies. Now, the Civil War, of course, was a long time ago, but we still have national controversy over things like the Confederate flag. We see that crop up again and again. That's got Civil War roots. So there's still an unresolved conflict in the national consciousness. In my own novel, which has sold about 8.63 million copies fewer than Gone with the Wind, the hot button is the conflict between civil rights and gay rights, civil rights, particularly gay rights, and religious freedom. And at the heart of that is the question of bigotry on both sides of those issues. Both of these, civil rights and religious freedom, are cherished American rights, and there is a long history behind each of them. And the idea in some religions that being gay is a sin is still incredibly potent, and it's important to an awful lot of people, just as the right to live without being discriminated against is important to everyone, and in this case to members of the LGBT community. Other bestsellers that Hall mentions in Hit Lit with hot-button topics are To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Racism is the hot-button topic in that. Jaws, interestingly, by Peter Benchley, explores government-supported greed versus populist forces. Now, when has that ever gone out of fashion in American culture? I just finished reading Stephen King's The Dead Zone, and the hot topic that he explores in that book is the rise and fall of one political issue after another, how things just come and go all the time in politics. The Dead Zone was published in 1979, but interestingly, he wrote about a candidate in that book who runs a campaign for office that is shockingly like the campaign that Donald Trump ran for president. You should go and check it out. I was turning the pages and thinking, wow, I can't believe how similar this is to the Trump campaign. All you have to do is take a look at your bookshelf or Google 2018 bestsellers and ask yourself which of them deal with a hot button topic that isn't just ripped from the headlines, but also expresses that unresolved conflict in the national consciousness. For instance, the Goodreads Choice Awards just got finished up, and the nominees for fiction in 2018 included Tayari Jones' An American Marriage. That is about racism. Also Wrongful Imprisonment, which is the topic of my next novel. The book There by Tommy Orange is really about our American history with Native Americans. And Jodi Picoult always writes about hot-button topics. Her newest novel, or the one that was voted on this year with Goodreads, is called A Spark of Light, and in that she's looking at the issue of abortion. One of the things that I love about writing fiction, and reading it too, but I'm talking specifically as an author here, is that writing fiction gives me the chance to get inside the hearts and minds and bodies of characters who are completely unlike myself. And if I do my job well, then readers will begin to understand people who are totally different than they are. I've heard from readers on both sides of the issue in my novel, This Is How It Begins, that I have made them think twice. So I've heard from my liberal gay readers that they came to have empathy and like the conservative religious character who is anti-gay in this book. I have also heard from more conservative religious readers that they came to a greater understanding of what it means for a gay person to be discriminated against. Now that is music to my ears. That to me is a job well done. Why? Because I set out not only to write a great story, a literary page-turner, which is what I was after, that was entertaining, but I also wanted to contribute my small part to a national conversation about bigotry in all its forms. When you write about a hot-button topic, this is what readers talk about when they talk about your book. I've seen this time and time again. Now that my book is out in the world, people are talking about the issues. And they're talking about those issues not just because I'm writing about it in my book, but because it is current, it is timely, and it touches on something that is still unresolved in our national consciousness. Now, how do you use this to sell books? Well, as you might imagine, first you have to write the book about the contemporary hot-button issue. Then it all becomes about promoting the book and how you position yourself. Publicists love it when you write about hot-button topics because you can always relate your book to whatever is happening in the headlines. So if you set up a Google search on your topic, you will see stuff come in every single day about your issue, and you can respond to that. You can respond to that publicly through social media in any way you want. For instance, I have a Google search set up on religious freedom, on gay rights, on one particular case that deals with the same sort of case that's in my book. And I also have a new one set up on wrongful imprisonment because that's the topic I'll be looking at in my next book. And every single day I get something, and it gives me an opportunity to respond to that, either just by commenting online, sharing it on social media, linking to my book, writing articles, which I don't do very much of just because I'm not terribly good at it. But if you're good at that sort of thing, you can write about whatever the contemporary issue is and push those out to journals, magazines, etc., so that you become a voice on the topic. And every time you do that, you mention your book and you're selling your book. One thing I did was alert librarians and library associations about how my book relates to contemporary issues. And what I've seen from that is that librarians have chosen my book as kind of a community reads thing. I have something coming up early next year that is a huge community, one book thing. And the reason they chose it is because it is on a hot button topic. The other thing is that you will inevitably get reviews from readers that say things like, some of what I've gotten are things like, ripped from today's headlines, current events have only made this gripping story more relevant. So readers will talk about timeliness, and they will talk about headlines, and they will talk about how relevant things are, the book is to what's happening today. And readers love to know what's happening today, and one way they learn more about it is to read fiction, and not just fiction, of course, but to read other stuff as well. So by reading your novel, they are immersing themselves in an issue in a way that gives them an opportunity to experience it in a different way. And the biggest thing is that it gets them an opportunity to get into the hearts and minds of other people, as I mentioned earlier. So using this, you can sell yourself as an expert, if you will, or somebody who has something to say on the hot button topic. And you can sell yourself to radio shows, podcasts, TV, organizations that deal with your hot button topic, book groups, anybody who might be interested in the topic itself is a place to go to sell your book. In short, what I would say is that contemporary hot button issues are, well, they're hot, they're timely. Timely is the word that most reviewers use when they're talking about my book, and James Hall talks about that in Hit Lit in his book about why these books sold as many copies as they sold. So to wrap things up, and in keeping with the Women in Publishing Summit, where we share some tips for you, here are 4 tips that can help you if you decide that this is the route you're going to go, or if you're already writing a contemporary novel or a contemporary book that deals with hot button issues of the day. First tip, first of 4, read broadly and read across genres. The reason I suggest this is twofold. As a writer, you should be reading all the time, and you should be reading a lot of different stuff. Why? Because it's the tool of your trade. It's how you learn. It's how you absorb how other people are doing the work. It also exposes you to characters who are completely unlike you, so you can have that experience as a reader and know what it feels like. So when you're writing, you can give that to your reader. Number 2, keep an open mind. This one is so important. It's really important to be honest. No matter who you're portraying, set your own judgments aside and really try to embody who you're writing about, no matter who they are. Really try to truly understand your characters, learn to like them no matter who they are, and try to walk far more than a mile in their shoes. Don't just pay lip service to it, but really find something inside yourself that can identify with those characters who are unlike you, because that kind of honesty is exactly the sort of thing that sells books. Readers will know if you're faking it. They will know if you're fudging it. They will know if you're just making up a character. You want to be able to feel that character, empathize with them, and put them out there for the reader to experience in the same way. Number 3, write what scares you. I think this isn't so important. I think, again, about Stephen King. One of the things that strikes me about his work is when you read it, there's so many different characters, and part of what's fascinating to me is some of them are just so, they're so unlikable. And he just goes for it. He writes stuff that makes my skin crawl, and not because it's horror, but because it's so human and it's so real. And I think the mark that he has done that well is that he gets hate mail. He gets people writing to him and berating him for being racist or sexist or homophobic or you name it, because he writes characters who embody those traits so well. He does it so well that people believe Stephen King is those things, when what he has done is he's actually embodied the characters so fully and so fearlessly that he's done a good job with it. That can be really scary. It can be very hard to put something out there that you don't personally believe in. And what I have seen as somebody who reads a lot of manuscripts and teaches a lot of writers, what I have seen is that people back off of that. They're too nice. They're too kind. Read Stephen King, learn from the master about how to portray characters who aren't like yourself, and write what scares you. Go for it. The 4th thing, and this might seem counterintuitive to what I'm talking about with contemporary issues, but unplug now and again. I never used to think much about this or understand it, even though I've heard this advice so many different times. But I recently had an opportunity to be away from it all at a writer's residency in Wyoming for an entire month. The internet was spotty there, and I was there to write, and I unplugged. I spent almost no time on my phone or on social media. I didn't go to social media. And what I discovered is, you know what? The world goes on without you. And what that time without the world, I didn't know what was going on in the news. I didn't know what was going on with people on social media. And what that did for me is it gave me brain space. And that brain space allowed me to explore. It allowed me to really study. It allowed me to think really deeply and feel things really deeply. And those kinds of things are the ways in which you can write those characters really, really well. So do it. Give it a shot. Unplug. The world will be there when you get back, and usually not that much has changed. So go for it. Read broadly, keep an open mind, write what scares you, unplug. That's my best advice. I hope this has been helpful. Take a look below at the links to the books that I have mentioned, most notably my own novel. Please buy it. And Hit Lit by James Hall. This is a very good read. It's really interesting. So take a look below to links to those books. And if you'd like to learn more about me and be in touch with me, I would welcome that. By the time this is live, I will likely have some online classes that are running, so take a look for those as well. You can find me at joandempsey.com. That's JOANDEMPSEY, joandempsey.com. Thanks again for being here. Appreciate it.